we extend life to the point and fix illnesses to the point where life becomes a little bit more durable, and people relax more and more about the physical requirements our bodies had, a few thousand years ago. We're hunters and gatherers, and we're constantly worried about predators. The physical requirements and the dangers that you had to be able to experience and mitigate and get through every day were so much more dangerous than what we experience on a daily basis, other than like car accidents and things along those lines.
Right.
But we still have all those fight or flight responses. We still have those reward systems that need to be fed, because we're essentially in the same, give or take a few genetic mutations, the same bodies that people had 10,000 years ago, right?
Right. Yep. It's like that little line, the 3 Fs: fight, flight, or reproduction.
Or freeze. That's the other one.
Or freeze,
the big one is what people don't consider is why do certain people not run, not fight, but panic, lock up, and what's going on there? Because that's a real response that is super common that doesn't get addressed in a fight-flight response.
Right.
There's also people that
make it work.
Fucking freeze.
But all those things in a more dangerous world actually do age you faster. That some of the research I was reading in these books about aging is just the more stress you have, it does, those stress hormones leads to more inflammation. There's more and more stuff about inflammation and disease, inflammation and Alzheimer's, inflammation and the telomeres. It shortens your life. And there was this big study on possums in Florida, the ones that are out in the wild getting run over and attacked and preyed upon versus ones that were put on this island where there was no predators, all the food that they want. The ones that lived on the island lived significantly longer, like 50% longer. Wow. And not just accounted for by the ones that got run over, not that, just the aging process. Just living in an open, dangerous environment takes its toll on your cellular reproduction and how long you live, irrespective of predation and accidents.
Yeah.
So this is back to the, meditation, take it easy, lower those stress hormones, because they do take a toll on your body.
Yeah, unquestionably. I mean, it must. The idea that you can get through life redlining it all the time.
It's like people ask that don't know much about football, why can't they play the whole game like the final 2 minutes?
Oh, Jesus.
Well, you can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just football in and of itself. Like, how long can you do that? Like, does anybody ever figured out how many times you can get hit by a guy who's 350 pounds running 30 miles an hour? I mean, those guys are giant, and they're huge super athletes, and they collide with each other. I don't think a person like you or me can even appreciate the amount of impact that's involved in a lineman who's just a giant mountain of a man using all of his might and running into you. I don't think I can understand it. I think I watch it on TV and I see where guys' feet are up in the air and they go slam. But I don't think I physically can feel it. I don't think I get it.
Right.
I just think it's.
No, that story of the, the concussion story that was first broke by ESPN in Frontline in a 2-hour documentary. That guy that died, the Pittsburgh Steelers center, Mike. What was the guy? I forget his name.
Jamie's a big sports fan.
Mike. He was featured in the movie that
the Will Smith movie.
Yeah. But the docs calculated that in the course of his life, say from high school football, college football, and 20 seasons in the NFL, and all the practices all week and in the game.
Mike Webster.
Yeah, Mike Webster. He probably got hit hit the equivalent of a minor concussion, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of times. And that's the cumulative effects.
That is just so crazy. What is this?
Yeah.
What is this, Jim?
Size of an NFL lineman.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so in 1927, they were 190 pounds and 6 feet tall. So 190 pounds is 6 pounds less than me. And I'm not a big person. I'm 5'8". So they're a little taller at 6 foot for the average lineman, which is a giant person, right? Now, in 2000 and what is the last one? 8? Jamie, what does it say? Scroll down.
2006. I was just trying to show this part at the bottom, which shows how hard it is.
2006, you get to the average lineman is 6'4", 335 pounds.
He's not the average. He's the outlier though, because he's Haloti Ngata. He's a a little bit big. He's a
But
big
still,
guy.
you can see the
But still,
curve.
most of them are a little
Yeah.
bit smaller than him, but still, they're all over 300 pounds.
But look at, I mean, I remember Alan Finch. He was huge. He was massive and just one of the greats. And he
Only
would,
245.
he probably wouldn't even make the
God.
the main team now.
Right, and what year was that? Scroll down, please. 67.
Yeah.
So in 67, 67, that guy was like if you see like how big George Foreman was.
Right.
When George Foreman was the heavyweight champ, he was gigantic.
Yeah.
But I mean, when he came back, when he started his comeback, he was well over 300 pounds. He was really overweight, but I don't think he was that big when he was fighting. I think he was in the 220s or 230s when he was a heavyweight champ when Ali beat him.
Yeah, some of the stuff, like the ones on the right there, there's a lot of body fat. That's not
Of course. Yeah. I mean, there's
because I guess the more
mass.
mass,
Yeah.
like the sumo wrestlers, you want mass, not just muscle.
Yeah, they also, those guys are just all about power. They're all about power and weight behind power, and in a certain amount of time, like if you have the same amount of power but more weight behind it, you can actually probably have more of an impact when you're colliding with people.
Right.
Like if you ever try to wrestle with a big person, like even if they're not strong, like the amount of mass that you have to move when you're wrestling around with them, like
Right.
you don't consider it until someone, like, until you're in a situation, like, I guess, if you had never played football before, and then you ran out there and you were on the front line, and you'd be like, okay, what is this going to be like? There's no
Right.
way you know. There's no
Right.
way you know what that 330-pound dude feels like when he's boom,
Right.
full blast into you. What a crazy fucking sport.
I'm reading this book now called Spitting in the Soup, about the history of doping in sports that goes back to the late 19th century. And half of it is just for survival. You take these drugs just to get through the next week and the next game, the next
Yeah.
contest. And how it was, this guy's argument is that it was pretty accepted and common and known. The guy that won the Tour de France 5 times used to say that you can't expect us to do this on bread and water. I mean, we've raced 250 times a year and 6-8 hours a day of killing ourselves. Jean Concatil, the French cyclist. But this appears to be true in most sports, in that it wasn't until I think it was 1906 Olympics when people started equating doping with sin. Like, this is a moral thing. Like you're cheating, as opposed to it's just a medical thing. I train, I lift weights, I do this, I eat this diet, I take these drugs. It's all kind of part of the mix of being an athlete. And then there was a transition, he argues, socially or morally or whatever. And all these things are good, but this one thing over here is bad. Like, say, cycling, your hematocrit is important because you're delivering oxygen to your muscles. So if you and I probably have 45 to 50% hematocrit, that's the number of red blood cells in your blood. So half are red blood cells delivering oxygen to your muscles. So now if you're like in the low 30s, that's anemic. And this drug, EPO, invented by Amgen, was created to save patients that are anemic from cancer treatment or whatever. It's a great drug. But so it wasn't long before the cyclists got a hold of this in the late 80s, early 90s. Like, well, okay, if I'm naturally at 45% and you're at 50%, I'm losing a little edge, so I'll train at high altitude, or I'll sleep in the oxygen tent, or I'll just take the injection.